Hey there, here's a quick video from Partner Support highlighting key admin features and functionality to prepare your firm and customers for the season. We will walk through each specific section in order, so feel free to pause, take screenshots, or listen entirely through, and you may get it with one shot. Not to worry though, it's easy to do, very straightforward, and you'll likely not need to reference this video again after you've done one. Additionally, we will do our best to give best practices with each of the sections. Ultimately, each will be unique to your firm and specific operation. Nonetheless, we will do our best to show what we have found to be the most efficient and productive ways of getting your company game time ready for the season. When you start to set up your program, you have the option to do a quick account setup and kind of go through by clicking next, 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 and you can get it completed that way. I prefer to go into the setup. I like to work in a full screen. You can click Add New Return or Add New Prepare. I'm going to go ahead and just work with Zach here. And you will create a username, an account name, a password, and a password hint. The next section, you're going to create the actual prepare name, a last name, a PTIN, phone number, and an email address. If this is a data entry person that it does not have a PTIN, if I select data entry only, the PTIN is not a required field. It's actually locked out. For this scenario, I'm just going to keep them as a registered tax preparer. I'm going to move on down. If they have any special numbers, depending on the state you're working in, a New York PRIN, maybe the preparers only, and or New Mexico number, they can key those in. When the software is opened up and you add a new taxpayer or preparer, the user options here at the bottom always say no. With it being defaulted to no, that means that the tax preparer can only see the returns that they have created. They will not be able to see any other returns. So depending on your setup, you want them to see other returns or just their own. So if you want them to see all returns, you would click on the yes button. Your typical setup on what you allow users to do, unless they're admins, is to modify invoices if you offer discounts. Perhaps you let them file amended returns. They could print tax returns and email tax returns. Maybe you want to give them access to changing the preparer in a particular return. Typically, delete returns, delete firms are admin duties. Special note to disable view print configuration. Leave that one unchecked for everybody. This will allow the particular preparer to pick and choose what forms they want to print from the print menu after the return is completed. If it is an admin, you can go ahead and select give them admin access. By allowing admin access, it lets them go into their clients, e-file returns, access the scheduler, email and print client letters, do bank products. If you're the owner or the admin, maybe you do or don't want people looking at reports because financials are one of those reports. The forms lets them view PDF of the tax returns. It's something that should be good for them to do. Setup gives them access to this screen, so it may not be something you want them to do. Tools, I'll cover in just a moment. Basically, the next thing you want to let them do as you're setting up your preparer is click Save and Continue. It will ask a series of questions. You can go ahead and skip this as these questions will be asked from this preparer upon first login. The next screen will ask for two-factor authentication. You can choose to activate the login, or they can activate it upon first login. If you do choose to activate it, you need to have their cell phone number and an email address where that activation code could be sent. The next section is Google Authentication. It is a third layer of protection. You can have your preparer, enable authentication, and then every time they log into the software, it'll send their phone a code that they must go ahead and click yes, what have you, to log into the software. Yet another layer of protection is a security PIN. You can add a PIN, they can add a PIN upon first login, and this will let them do a 4-digit PIN as another layer of security to get into the program. Once you click complete, that preparer is completed, what have you. Notice the mobile app portal. If you click on these little blue squares, each number passcode is unique. This is for the mobile app. Once a taxpayer downloads and accesses the mobile app for the first time, it asks them to create an account. This unique passcode is what ties that mobile app to this particular preparer. You can select to send an email to this particular email address once a taxpayer creates a mobile app return. I'm going to move down the side here to Firm. This is basically a one-time setup. Most of this is done for you. You just want to verify that all the numbers and everything is set up correctly, and then save changes. It's very important that on each screen you click Save Changes. If you do not, you will not have saved any of the work you've done. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Settings. So the Settings button on the left here, you have your account name, and these are each of the preparers within this program. Each of these preparers can have different settings depending on what the admin decides to do. The preparer settings, I choose to never use dialog mode. I always want to use a direct entry. I do not like using the interview. That's just me. I like to include detailed invoices. Perhaps you want to exclude a perform invoice on yours. Not 100% sure how you want to work that. The Social Security settings. None means that in the client grid, you can see all of the full Social Security of each customer. You can choose to mask it either one of these ways. By checking this box, every time you print a return, a customer copy or a prepare copy, it will mask the SSN. Again, for the return entry mode, I've defaulted direct entry. The next section down is prepare preferences. I have it set up what a typical preparer needs to have on their client grid. You can choose to add additional information or not. I have, for example, e-file and paper. I want to know if it's an e-file or paper return. I want to know their balance due or federal refund. I do want to know the federal status of the return of the federal return, the date the return was created, state filing status. In certain scenarios, when you're using multiple EFINs, you may want to include the EFIN. You have return status and then a bank status. If it's a bank product, you may choose to include a state. At the bottom, you do have client level settings. This is for the return itself. When I print the return, I like to have a date under the signature date automatically put in. I also like to have the name under the signature box. If you're working in a state that does file state returns, I suggest to check this box. This will pull the federal wages to box 16 of the W-2. Many people like to round dollars to the nearest dollar. And if you use third-party designee, you would definitely want to check this box. Remember to save your changes. At the bottom, there's this little box. So if you're an admin and you want everybody's software to look the same, function the same, everybody's on board with doing direct entry, you want to include detailed pricing on every return, you want everybody to have the exact same setup. You can push this down to everybody by selecting this box and then selecting which preparers you want to send this to. You can select the ones you want to send it to, particular returns or particular preparers, or all of them, and then just save those changes. At the top, we also have Firm Level tab. On the firm level, this is any letterhead information you're going to have here. So when you print a letter, this is the information I like to include in the upper left corner. I don't think that the preparer name should be their email address or phone number. You can choose to customize this however you'd like. I also don't think that the client information needs to be on that letter above the Dear Client. The letter signature, I use prepare instead of the firm. The preparer is typically the one that has the relationship with the taxpayer. I could choose where I want to put my logo in the upper left or the upper right of the page. Here I can upload my logo. As you've seen, I've got one here. And then I can preview the letter. If I click preview letter, you have Dear Client, the message, sincerely, and the preparer. In the upper left, nice and left justified, is firm information, and on the right you have that logo. If I included the client name, client address, city, state, zip, this is what that would look like. Has a customer name, address, city, and then client name. It all depends on your preferences. Just remember to click the Save Changes after you select your preferences. If I go to invoice information, you must provide this information to start. I like to use the tax year. So for this coming year, I would do 2023, a starting invoice number of 1501, and an office location may help you identify certain offices or your office if you have multiple offices. You can identify them by number, by name, by city. So maybe I'll just do San Diego if this office is in San Diego. I can check here to treat all bank invoices as just invoices until they're paid. And I can also check here to show all detailed fee disclosures for bank products instead of a lump sum. Again, I can save changes. I can move on to the next one from here, or I can select continue to email configurations. The email configuration is just a letter that is sent out as a cover sheet when you email a customer, and it teaches them how to get into their password protected return. I don't recommend making changes here. It's a pretty good canned letter. Printer preferences. This is what you want to print as a default. Some people like to print a client copy. Maybe for the preparer, you don't want a full copy of the return. Maybe you just want the signature forms for the preparer. You can choose to add a watermark if you'd like. Here on the left, under watermark settings, you can adjust what your watermark says. One thing I do recommend is selecting Portal App Copy and putting something in the watermark. I like it from bottom left to upper right. The reason I say this is important is because if somebody is previewing the return on their cell phone, you sent them a copy just to preview. If they choose to print it, they can go ahead and print it and mail it in, and they cut you out of the money. So it's important that it would have to say preview only so they could not mail that. This is what it would look like, something like this. Preview only across the middle of the page. Moving on down to signature preferences. My particular signature preferences, when a taxpayer signs either with a signature pad or remotely, I want the federal forms and schedules to be signed, state and forms and schedules to be signed, bank product application to be signed if it is a bank product, and EIC diligence worksheet to be signed. You can set these up to your preferences. And lastly, return stage settings. These are settings that you can set up within the software that you can use internally in your office to designate where each client is. For example, a waiting for document and a waiting for signature are two that I use often. That way I can quickly go to stages, select, I want to see everybody is waiting for documents, and I can see who has not brought me certain documents. I can reach out to them, text them, call them, and have them bring it in. Waiting for signature, if it's been more than 24 hours, I know I have to resend that signature request to them. Go ahead and you remember to click Save Changes. It is important. From the left, let's select Signature Pad. Here is where I would select if I'm using a mouse or stylus to sign, if I have a signature pad that I want to use, or not at all. Don't use it all. If I hit Save, I can select Firm Signature. I may be able to select Start Signature, and as the signee for the firm, I can sign a name, I can save that signature, and then I can go down to each preparer and have them sign. You select Prepare Signature now, you prepare, click Start, Ruby, oops, sorry about that, Ruby Fooz, and I can save that signature. I can go on to the next preparer. That's Armando here. I can start their signature, and I can sign away on the signature, and then save the signature. Alternatively, if you do not have a signature pad, I could select mouse or stylus, save my option, and I can go, for example, to Zach Hutchinson. I can hit start, and I can go Zach and sign with a mouse and save that signature as well. I'm going to go ahead and move on to pricing. The pricing is in a different spot of the software. You will need to click on individual here at the very top. And then at the left, click on pricing. There are several options when it comes to pricing. I could do a fixed rate for every return. If I do that, every return I do is going to be at that rate. I can choose to do set price per return. For example, I have my main form at $80. I have a 1040X at 60, and so on and so forth. Under schedules, I can also set prices. When I typically set these prices, if I work on the form, that's when I put a price down. If I'm actually doing work and it's not auto-generated, but you can choose to do this however you'd like. So I have my schedules, then I can go to my 8 forms, for example, go down to my 88.79. Maybe I want to pick up a few extra bucks, charge $30 if it's going to be e-filed. And perhaps remember to go down to the bottom and click Save Federal Pricing. If not, your work will not be saved. If I go to my 9 forms, maybe I'm going to charge 30 bucks or 35 bucks for an installment agreement and save federal pricing. There's another option when it comes to pricing that you may choose to use, and that is Set Price Manually. If I select Set Price Manually and Save Federal Pricing, at the end of each return, it will ask me to key in a price for that return. Okay. Moving on to the state follows suit with the federal, except for you have this option, one additional option. Maybe you want to charge a flat rate for each state. So if I click this option, I can set up a pricing for each of the states that do returns. Likewise, I can go to discounts. I can key in a discount. For example, this is what it would look like, family and friends. I can check here if I want to apply this discount, default it to everybody. In this scenario, I am not. And then I can make that update. You can select these discounts from the invoicing at the end of the return and apply any of these discounts to your return. You can also key in discounts manually at that point if you have the rights to do so. We can go the other way and select additional charges. Maybe for printing a return, I'm going to charge 20 bucks. Paper and ink, it's not cheap. And that's pretty much how the setup works from an admin's perspective. I did tell you that I owed you. I was going to show you the tools from the setup screen. So if you mark that box at the bottom of the preparer's rights and you give them the tools option, they can come in here. The only thing I don't like is that they can import returns from here and they can select to import all of them. And I don't think that's a good thing. I prefer to import one by one so that I can run a non-returning client report halfway through the season to see who hasn't come in to see me that year. But you do have an option to get to an estimator where you can create a quick estimate. There's a depreciation area. There's a married filing joint versus married filing separate area. And you have a messages area. I hope that helps with an administrator setup. Please contact your software provider for additional assistance. Thanks for watching.